Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Happy Friday, yet another Friday that I get to see you, that I get to speak to you. How are you guys doing? How has your week been? How is everything going for you? I am well. I am doing well. I'm doing much better than my previous video. Still researching on therapists because I definitely need to talk to a professional. But other than that, just taking it a day at a time, I guess. Going through the motions and going through everything that I need to go through. It's a lot, but I'm happy that I get to actually speak to you guys or have a chat with you guys as per the usual every Friday. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Lisa and I hope you stay. I hope you stay and I hope you subscribe. That subscribe button over there, I hope you click on it. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started on today's video. I am no longer on a student visa. Yay! I'm now on a work visa and I thought I should maybe... Guys are having construction out of this house. I thought I should maybe talk about things you need to know about a student visa. Specifically, this only applies to Australia. It could be different in other places. It could be somehow similar, but this is based again on my experience as a student, having been a student and having gone through the whole process. Now, I'll start this video by saying that when I came here as a student, things were slightly different, especially in terms of rules. COVID was on a high, and so the workforce here needed a lot of people. So a few of the rules were obviously eased, and then they came back to effect, I think this year, if I'm not wrong, or end of last year, I can't quite remember. But yeah, I was done being a student by then, but obviously I had to go through the whole process of moving to the next visa. It's not as direct because you still have to do certain things. So I've divided my video sort of like into three sections. The first one is obviously you're on a student visa and this is on studying. That's what I have called it. So under a student visa, one of the things that you're required to do is you're required to attend classes physically unless you're actually sick, and sometimes the lecturer might actually ask you to like give a doctor's note that just shows like a medical certificate showing like you're sick and stuff like that, especially when sometimes you're required to like submit assignments and you're not able to submit assignments for one reason or another. Now the thing about sometimes not attending classes is that unis are required to take attendance, and sometimes when the immigration department asks for the lists or the people who've been attending classes and your name is not there, and yet you're supposed to be studying, a full-time student, it's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be a problem. I'll just let you know that. I have heard a few stories where people have actually been like deported for that. So sometimes you never know they're onto you until they're onto you. And so you just go about your business, you decide you're not going to uni because, for example, it's cold, it's rainy, you don't have a car, you probably don't even have fare to go to uni because fare is subsidized as a student, but then of course you still have to attend class. And it could be a fault that is not your own. But then because you probably did not communicate that to the uni in good time and you have just not been attending classes, you're gonna have to, it's just gonna be difficult because you're gonna have to explain, I'm not so sure how many people will believe you and all that stuff. So it's just a lot of issues that you could easily have avoided had you maybe communicated that you're not able to attend class, or just push yourself and go to uni. The good thing is sometimes when you actually go to uni regularly, like you start forming connections, not just with your fellow students, but even with the lecturers and yeah, sometimes they could recommend you for certain things that you had no idea existed. Just saying. Now we move to the second section, which is on working or on jobs. That's what I've titled it as. Now, studying and working is permitted in Australia. And I remember in one of my videos, I talked about this being the first time I'm actually doing both. Because back then, I finished my undergrad and then went on to like work. But then here, I'm having to study and work at the same time. And this is because there's bills to be paid. There's sometimes you're also trying to save for your school fees as well. Sometimes, of course, you need to live on your own. You need to sustain yourself, so to speak. So there's a lot that needs your money. And if you're not working, where are you expected to get the money? Where are you expected to get the money if you're not working, my dear? So yeah, so you gotta work. But then this is the catch. So like I mentioned when I started this video, is that when I came, there was no restrictions on work. So normally there's restrictions. I think you're only allowed as a student to work 48 hours, a maximum of 48 hours per fortnight. So if you're doing like 8-hour shifts, that means you do 6 days a fortnight. A fortnight is 2 weeks. So instead of doing like Monday to Friday kind of thing, you would only do maybe 4 days 1 week, 2 days another, or 3 and 3, something like that, whatever works for you in whatever field. Now, you may ask, how will they know that I am adhering to the rules, that I am maybe not working 90 hours a fortnight? I don't know anyone who works 90 hours, but yeah, how will they know? That might be the question on your mind. Now, thing is, whenever you apply for a job, you usually have to give certain documents. So obviously, because you're not an Australian citizen, you do not have like an Australian passport or anything of that sort. So you'd have to give maybe your student visa and your passport. And that way they know you're on a student visa. Like your employer knows you're on a student visa. Now, most companies have like HR departments who are in charge of making sure that rules are complied to or complied with, that one. And once in a while, these HR people will decide that they are checking just to make sure that everyone is complying or adhering to the rules of the organization or adhering to the rules of their visa. Sometimes, even if your HR might not check for one reason or another, sometimes the immigration department is alerted that someone is working a lot based on how much you earn. Now, every year, just like any country, you have to file tax returns, which go to the taxation department. And the taxation department has links or communicates with the immigration department. And sometimes they're like, oh, this is a bit too high for one person who is single and is 20 years old. How come? And then they start digging into your file and they find so many things that they're like, you're working, you can't be earning this much money if you're only working 48 hours a fortnight and all that. So it's just problems on problems. And I know sometimes you're like, I'm not so sure the 48 hours fortnight can sustain me, can make sure that I'm able to save and I'm able to live comfortably. But the good thing is, school is not always in session. So school is usually in session for 12 or 13 weeks, normally with a 2-week break in between. It can be 1 week and then uni, and then 1 week and then uni. And as long as your uni is not in session, you can work as much as you want. So the 48 hours only apply if you're in session. Because remember, the thing that brought you to Australia is studying, so you have to put that as your priority. And so obviously, if you're not in session, and then you can just work as much as you can and make up for lost time, so to speak. Have as many jobs as you want. In my videos, I've talked about how you cannot really survive on one job, and this is the time you apply for as many jobs as you can. Now, still on working is the fact that you may not be considered for certain jobs because you're a student. As sad as that may be, that is the reality, because some people will literally ask you, like, when, especially if they have like application forms and all that, or even just during, what I've realized with Australian employers is you'll apply, you'll send your CV, and then they'll give you a call to screen before they actually invite you for the interview. So as they do their screening, they'll ask, do you have full work rights to work? Obviously, as a student, you do not have full work rights, so you'll be like, no, I'm on a student visa, I can only work maybe 3 days a fortnight. Mark you, this job is a part-time job that literally has the section where they're like, yeah, 48 hours a fortnight is all we need. But then just because you're a student, you will be disqualified from that job, and that is the sad reality. Like, even though you may qualify for that job, you may be disqualified just because you're on a temporary student visa, and for some reason they do not want to employ students. So yeah, that is just the sad reality. Now, moving on to the third section, which I have titled on finishing. Gotta love my titles, gotta love my subtitles. Anyway, yeah, so you've finished your studies, and you're thinking of your next adventure, so to speak. Now, normally after you finish, there's the temporary work visa, which is usually granted to students. These varies, it usually just depends. It could be 2 years, 3 years, I think even 5 years for certain students who studied maybe a certain course. This is where now obviously you have to apply for the visa. There's certain things that are required. Number one, you have to make sure that you finished your studies and you have a completion letter. Number two is to make sure that you finished, I think, within the 6 months or something. Number three is to make sure you still have private health insurance, so it's just moving from another insurance to another, from the student insurance to like a different insurance, which is usually guided, and a few other things. But as long as you've finished uni, every time you apply for a job, you can always just let them know you're done with your uni and you're hoping to move to the next visa. I remember this was a problem for me, because I finished and then my visa was expiring like 6-7 months after I'm done. So every time I would apply and they're screening me and they're like, what visa are you on? I'm like, I'm on a student visa, it's expiring soon, but like, it was just a whole other story. But the good thing about finishing is that even if you're on a student visa and you work as much beyond the 48 hours, you have a reason. Like, you can say, I'm working this much because I'm no longer a student. I am no longer a student. Another thing I would say on finishing studying and still on a student visa is the importance of making sure that everything is still up to date. Everything required is still up to date, because to be honest, you do not know what is required and when. It can be a lot. But yeah, you will finish. So yeah, those are the few things I have sort of like picked from my own experience. Remember, I am not an immigration agent or anything of that sort. These things are just based off of my own experience, but I hope it helps you. I hope it gives you clarity if you're planning to study, if you're almost done and you don't know what next step you need to take. I hope this helps. If you're struggling with sort of like trying to raise fees and all that stuff and you're not so sure where to start, I hope this gives you the clarity you need to take the next step, whatever that may be. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for keeping me company today. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And as per the usual, I will see you in my next video. Bye.